Just a year ago, Forbats was one of the most talked about new artists in music. Drake was remixing his songs, media outlets were calling him the next big star, and fans were convinced that he was about to take over. But fast forward to today, his Spotify listeners are down to barely 3 million a month, Google searches have been cut in half, and honestly, nobody's really talking about him anymore. So what happened? How did one of the hottest rising stars feel like a gimmick that came and went? Today we're going to break down the rise, the hype, and the fall of Forbats, and whether his come-up album, Still Shinin', can actually save his career. Back in late 2023 and early 2024, this Dallas native quietly dropped a few songs. Then, Act 2, Data 8, a short, high-pitched R&B track about wooing a woman, exploded in popularity. Forbats, whose real name is Nico Bennett, was soon on everybody's radar. TikTok and streaming propelled that song, and even Timbaland shouted him out, saying, "Y'all got one with this one." Timbaland also baited Drake to jump on a remix, and in March of 2024, Drake did just that. Suddenly, Forbats went from unknown to having a Drake feature on one of his songs. His streams skyrocketed. By April 2024, he'd have just 3 released songs, but over 100 million streams total on major platforms. For perspective, his debut track had a couple million Spotify plays in his first couple months. Cosigns started to pour in. Kanye West FaceTimed him live on Instagram, SZA commented too hard on his Instagram post, and even Usher got involved with a later collab. Big headlines followed. Billboards noted Forbats' rapid ascent and made him their Rookie of the Month for March of 2024. His first mixtape, You Made Me a Star, in May of 2024, debuted at number 30 on the Billboard 200. Every listener, every blog was asking, who is this kid with the ski mask and the golden teeth? A lot of Forbats buzz was about his unusual style, most strikingly, his voice. The sound fans hear is an actual altered, high-pitched version of his real baritone voice. His tracks are short, atmospheric R&B lullabies with whispered, often explicit lyrics. The effect is intimate and raw. Critics point out that he blends the minimalistic intimacy of 2010's Drake with old school 90s slow jams. Indeed, in My Little Shootah in 2025, you can hear that sparse, slowed down space, letting his slightly auto-tuned vocals carry every frank line. In short, Forbats' appeal lies in the contrast. A hardened Dallas street image, delivering surprisingly tender R&B stories. After 2024, Forbats kept busy dropping music. In early 2025, he teased an album, Still Shinin', announced for September 12, 2025. To build buzz, he released several singles. On July 25, 2025, he dropped Where Ya At with Sexyy Redd, a raunchy R&B link-up that he bragged had been months in the making. Forbats and Sexyy Redd go back. He even opened shows for her on tour, so this was a high-profile team-up. Hot new hip-hop notes, the single's explicit, sexy chorus, reports fans flocked to Twitter and TikTok saying, "Finally." The official cover is literally just stacks of cash spelling "Where You At." Despite the hype, Where You At hasn't broke any records. On Spotify, it's a modest few 100,000 plays so far. Then, on August 22nd, 2025, Forbats released My Little Shootah, a slow jam love R&B single that serves as a second drop from his upcoming album. This song is a classic Forbats, lo-fi guitar, spacey keys, and those conventional lyrics about intimacy. Critics note that it's like a quieter, more R&B version of Drake tracks. Somewhere between 2010's mellow Drake and 90s R&B sultriness. Hot new hip-hop sums up the scene. The new project, Still Shinin', comes after his debut mixtape, You Made Me a Star, and a string of singles, most recently Where Ya At with Sexyy Redd. His latest single, My Little Shootah, has been teased for weeks. Forbats has found his footing after a run that brushed shoulders with Drake, albeit momentarily. Still Shinin' drops on September 12th. In other words, he's trying to capitalize on every drop to regain momentum. All this industry chatter doesn't match what fans are actually doing. On one hand, Forbats still has big media attention. He's a Billboard Artist to Watch in 2024, a BET Best New Artist nominee. Outlets write story after story, and he's often name-checked alongside superstars like Kanye, Drake, and SZA, just to name a few. But on the other hand, many of his audience metrics have cooled. At the peak of his buzz, Forbats' monthly listeners neared 14 million. That was because everyone suddenly heard about him and looped those few tracks. As of fall 2025, however, his monthly listeners are only around 3.2 million. In plain terms, far fewer people are actively listening now than during the hype spike. Similarly, Google Trends have likely spiked when Drake jumped on the remix and when mixtape news dropped, but have fallen since. Twitter mentions have quieted too. Essentially, the conversation around him was big, but it seemed to have subsided. Streams tell a similar story. As of September 5th, 2025, Forbats' total Spotify streams are 610 million across all songs. That sounds huge, but remember Act 2, Data 8 alone has 227 million, and its Drake's remix has 166 million. Those two songs account for over 60% of his streams. Many newer singles like Where Ya At and My Little Shooter only have hundreds of thousands or low millions of plays. In other words, a majority of his streams still come from the initial breakout song. The new tracks aren't yet adding to comparable totals. Spotify profile stats via SongStats even list only 2.7 million followers. So while industry cosigns and press haven't let up, actual listener behavior has slowed. Maybe the non-stop releases have diluted excitement. Forbats dropped nearly a dozen songs in 2024 alone. Fans might be overwhelmed or picky about the slower R&B jams. Also, his aesthetic is niche and might wear on mainstream listeners. Compare that to other R&B acts. Looking at artists doing somewhat similar music can be telling. For example, Brent Faiyaz is another alternative R&B singer with atmospheric sung rap lyrics. Brent's 2022 album Wasteland was a big success. He has around 20 million monthly listeners on Spotify. Brent's style, and he regularly releases polished singles and collabs. By contrast, Forbats' lo-fi approach is more underground. Still, fans have compared Forbats' tone and vibe to rising R&B trends in general. In fact, Forbats' My Little Shootah explicitly channels a Drake-like 2010s R&B style, and Drake himself clearly liked the formula for our guy. Another comparison is Leon Thomas. Leon's breakout single Mutt uses pitched vocals and storytelling, much like Forbats' vibe. Mutt went viral. It's at 266 million Spotify streams already, and Leon now has a major label deal and millions of listeners too. Both Leon and Forbats rely on moody production and a blend of rapping and singing. But Leon's rise felt steadier. The key contrast, Brent and Leon have consistently put out new music and built fan bases without nearly as much hype or drama. Their streams kept rising thanks to multiple singles and album pushes, whereas Forbats' catalog is mostly those initial hits plus a smattering of singles. At the moment, Brent and Leon are in demand. Forbats, on the other hand, seems to hover in their shadow. People still respect his uniqueness, but aren't talking about him as much. So what went wrong, if anything? It's not that Forbats lost his talent. His writing and ear for melody are strong, but there's a few key factors that might explain the cooldown. For one, the novelty wore off. In 2024, no one had heard anything quite like Act 2, Data 8, and Forbats' persona and whole aesthetic was a total mystery. Once we learned his story, the mystery lessened. The initial storytelling hook has played out. Without a new secret, attention shifted. And then there's streaming dynamics. He had an ultra low catalog, just a handful of songs. That's a double-edged sword to start with. It gave everyone a huge lift when fans repeated themselves endlessly. His plays skyrocketed with so few tracks. But it also means audience fatigue set in quickly. By late 2024, people had looped those songs dozens of times and had grown tired of them without any new songs being released quickly. New singles like Where Ya At or My Little Shootah are qualitatively similar but not as novel, so fewer people jumped in. Another reason is market competition. As noted, artists like Leon Thomas, Brent Faiyaz, and others like Rosalia or Jhené Aiko have been dominating the central alternative R&B space. Their releases, tours, videos, and public profiles grew throughout 2024 and 2025, and Forbats has dropped. While covered in niche press, he didn't reach those audiences. Other viral sensations also drew attention away, like Ice Spice, Summer Walker's new music, and just the thing going on in rap with Drake and Kendrick's beef. Public controversy and confusion is also a big player. Around mid-2024, there was chatter speculating Forbats was an industry plant or even AI generated at first. Even though he shrugged it off as a boogeyman game, some fans felt uneasy whether his success was organic. Plus, rumors swirled around label deals, and he signed a 1 EP licensing deal with Drake's OVO label, which some fans misread as a full signing. The skepticism sometimes dampens fan enthusiasm. All that said, Forbats has remained artistically consistent. His recent singles doubled down on what made him unique: blunt, intimate lyrics and atmospheric beats. Industry writers highlight that Still Shinin can solidify his place as one of 2025's most intriguing breakout voices, but also ask whether he can turn that energy into a sustained career. In casual terms, the question is whether he's a one-trick pony or a genuine star. With the album just days away, the big question is whether Still Shinin will reignite interest. The rollout suggests he's aiming for both. The 2 pre-release singles have reached some dedicated fans, his YouTube channel has tens of thousands of views on each, and he's being savvy about timing, dropping 1 song per month to keep chatter alive. He's also engaged fans on social media, teasing lyrics and artwork. Early signs are mixed. My Little Shootah was covered by blogs as a tease, and fans seem excited, but Spotify numbers are still relatively low. Even with all the buzz, only time will tell if new listeners jump in. If Still Shinin delivers a handful of hits, or even one viral smash, he could recapture momentum quick. However, if it performs like another mixtape, without those massive Spotify singles, Forbats might settle into a smaller scale niche. Either way, Forbats' debut album will be a clear milestone. It'll show whether his artistry and storytelling can translate from singles to a full-length body of work. His team is banking on his unique blend of vulnerability and swag to carry the album. As one critic put it, My Little Shootah establishes Forbats as an artist who's ready, not just to deliver catchy singles, but to build a cohesive project that captures the many contradictions of his style. Fans will be listening closely on September 12th to see if Still Shinin lives up to that promise. In short, Forbats' story so far equally parts triumph and cautionary tales. He soared quickly to a viral hit and big star endorsements. His sound, pitched vocals, blunt intimacy, made waves and earned comparisons to other R&B trailblazers, but unlike most seasoned artists, he had less catalog and perhaps less staying power behind the hype. The public conversation around him is cooled, and as shown by his drop in Spotify listeners, and a more subdued presence on social media, Still Shinin might be Forbats' chance to prove that he's more than just a flash in the pan. It's now or never. If it clicks, he could ride this wave again. If not, he maybe have to rebuild momentum from the ground up. Regardless, the album will answer whether Forbats can keep shining or his lights fade. And we'll certainly be watching and listening to find out.